write the words, the endings that shine. Set the story straight across the endless spine. Restore the magic, make the chaos fade. In the lost library where dreams are made.
Picture this. It is January 1st. You are sitting at your kitchen table and you are writing out what feels like a master blueprint for a completely new you.
Oh, yeah, with a brand new planner and everything.
Exactly. You are going to lose 40 pounds. You're going to pay off all your credit card debt, write a novel, learn Spanish, and, meditate every morning for 20 minutes.
Right. It is the ultimate cultural starting line. There's this very specific kind of intoxicating hope in that moment of putting pen to paper.
Yeah, you tape that list to the refrigerator door and you think, this is it. This is my year. But then, February rolls around.
As it always does.
Right. And that list is still in the fridge, but you have completely stopped looking at it. The Spanish app has a 0-day streak. The meditation hasn't happened. And you just feel this crushing sense of personal failure.
You start to think, I just don't have the willpower.
But you're wrong. In this deep dive, we are completely dismantling the idea that failing at your goals is a willpower problem.
Because it's not.
Yeah.
It is entirely a design problem. Our whole cultural obsession with going big and relying on these massive reserves of ambition is just, scientifically speaking, flawed from the ground up.
And we're pulling all of this from a really fascinating book by Dr. Shu Chen Hou called The Smallest Yes: The Simple Habit System for Consistency, Motivation, and Lasting Change.
It's a great read.
It really is. Our mission today is to give you a neuroscience-backed framework that relies on doing the absolute, almost embarrassing minimum. So, okay, let's unpack this. Why do we have this collective delusion that we need huge goals to succeed?
To understand that, we really have to look at the foundation of the modern goal-setting industry. There is a very famous 1953 Yale University study.
Oh, I think I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, the story goes that researchers asked graduating seniors if they had written down specific massive goals, and allegedly only 3% had.
Right, and then 20 years later, they followed up and found that this 3% was worth more financially than the other 97% combined. I have heard that exact story in at least 3 different motivational seminars. It is treated like absolute gospel.
It is everywhere. And there is just one massive problem with it.
Wait, don't tell me.
It never happened. It was completely fabricated.
Wait, really? The foundation of the dream big industry is literally a myth.
A total myth. In 1997, a journalist named Lawrence Tabak actually went digging for Fast Company. He contacted the Yale class of 53 archives, tracked down the origins, and proved definitively that no such study was ever conducted. No data, no record, nothing.
That is wild.
It's an urban legend. But the fact that we all believe it tells us how desperately we want to believe that dreaming big is the magic lever for success.
But the science actually says something different, right?
Yeah, it shows that this obsession with big visions can actually be harmful. Psychologists Gabriel Oettingen and Peter Gollwitzer have spent decades on this. They developed a concept called mental contrasting.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
Well, they found that when people vividly fantasize about a positive outcome, like getting the dream job or hitting a goal weight, their motivation actually drops.
I'm really struggling with this because every sports coach I have ever had told me to visualize the win. Are they saying visualization is actually making me perform worse?
Basically, yes. When you give your brain a vivid enough fantasy of success, the brain partially registers the goal as already accomplished.
Oh, wow. So it just relaxes.
Exactly. The nervous system lowers its urgency. The vision doesn't act as an engine, it acts as a brake. Your brain feels the emotional reward of the finish line without having taken a single step.
So daydreaming about success is almost like eating mental junk food. Like, it tastes great in the moment, but it totally drains the energy you need to actually do the real work.
That is a perfect analogy. What Oettingen and Gollwitzer found actually works is imagining the outcome, but then immediately and specifically imagining the obstacles. And then you make a tiny situational plan to bypass them. Smallness, not grand ambition, is the actual mechanism of change.
Okay, so if fantasizing about a massive goal drains our drive because the nervous system relaxes, we really need to look at what the brain actually wants to do all day, which is essentially conserve energy.
Right. The brain is an incredibly greedy organ. I mean, it makes up maybe 2% of your body weight, but it consumes 20% of your energy.
That's a huge ratio.
It is. So its primary directive is energy conservation. In the late 90s, an MIT neuroscientist named Anne Graybeal did some groundbreaking research on the basal ganglia.
Which is a primitive part of the brain involved in habits, right?
Yes. She tracked the neural activity of rats, learning to navigate a T-shaped maze to find chocolate milk.
Which apparently rats absolutely love.
Oh, they will do just about anything for it. Now, when the rats first encountered the maze, their brain activity was just off the charts. They were consciously analyzing every turn, every smell, every texture of the floor.
Highly effortful.
Very. The prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of the brain, was working overtime. But after many repetitions, something remarkable happened. The neural activity plummeted.
Really?
Yeah, it only spiked at the very beginning of the maze when they heard the click opening the gate, and at the very end when they got the reward.
So the brain just went on autopilot for the entire middle part.
Exactly. The brain chunked the entire sequence into a single automatic unit. It offloaded the work from the conscious, effortful mind to the unconscious mind, and it physically rewired itself to do this.
By thickening the myelin sheath around the neural pathways, right? I like to think of myelin like insulation on a copper wire. The thicker that insulation gets, the faster the electrical signal travels without leaking energy.
That's exactly how it works. The brain is literally upgrading the hardware for that specific habit so it doesn't have to think about it anymore.
So it wants to automate everything it can.
It does. And this brings us to Roy Baumeister's concept of ego depletion. Because conscious thought and self-control take so much energy, willpower behaves like a finite resource that drains over the course of the day.
Like a battery.
Yes. The 9 a.m. version of you is fully charged and ready to conquer the world. But the 9:30 p.m. version of you, standing in the kitchen, exhausted from making 100 decisions at work, that version of you is running on empty.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. If our brains are literally designed to be lazy and automate things, isn't it fighting a losing battle to try and muscle through a massive new routine?
What do you mean?
Well, if I decide my new goal is a 5 a.m. boot camp, and I need the 9 a.m. fully charged version of myself to execute it, I'm going to fail the moment I have a bad day.
It is absolutely a losing battle. Small actions are cheap. They don't require a full willpower battery. Which brings us directly to Dr. Hou's solution.
The smallest yes framework.
Exactly. How do we design a habit that actually survives that willpower drain? It comes down to 4 very deliberate steps. Step 1. Name the behavior you want to make consistent. Step 2. Find the smallest possible unit of that behavior.
Okay, and step 3?
Step 3. Attach it to an existing anchor in your day, something you already do automatically, like pouring your morning coffee or brushing your teeth. And step 4, celebrate for 10 seconds immediately after you do it.
Okay, I have to say, that celebration part sounds a little goofy.
It does. But Dr. Hou points out that a tiny fist pump or just a quiet yes to yourself isn't just about feeling good. It triggers a dopamine hit.
Ah, and dopamine is a learning chemical.
Right. It tells your brain to encode the behavior as rewarding, which encourages that myelin insulation we talked about to grow thicker. But the absolute defining metric of this whole system is what she calls the worst day rule.
The worst day rule. I love this concept.
It's the ultimate reality check. Your smallest yes must be executable on your literal worst day. The day you are exhausted, sick, grieving, or just completely overcome by life.
So if you can't do the habit on that day without having a mental debate with yourself, it is too big.
Exactly. You have to have it, and then you have to have it again.
Let's ground this with one of the case studies from the sources, because this is where it really clicked for me. Marcus. He is a CPA, an accountant, which is deeply ironic because he had $27,000 in hidden credit card debt.
Yeah, that case study is powerful.
He literally organized other people's money for a living. But the shame of his own financial situation was so intense, he avoided looking at his own statements for 7 years.
Every single new year, Marcus would resolve to create a budget and pay off debt. And every year, the sheer size of that task triggered a massive threat response in his brain.
It was just too painful.
Right. He would quit within 2 weeks. So when he finally applied the framework, his smallest yes wasn't making a budget. It was insanely small.
What did he do?
Every Sunday morning, with his coffee, that was his anchor, he would open his email, find just one credit card statement, and write down 3 numbers in a notebook: the balance, the interest rate, and the minimum payment. Then he would close the notebook. That was it.
But wait, I have to push back here on behalf of the listener. How does writing down 3 numbers actually pay off $27,000? It feels like we're just playing pretend. The debt is still there.
It is a totally fair skepticism. But we have to remember what is happening in the brain. It's not about the math in those first few weeks. It is entirely about the neurobiology of avoidance.
Because his brain was treating the debt like a physical threat.
Yes. For 7 years, Marcus's amygdala, the brain's alarm system, associated looking at his debt with overwhelming psychological threat. By shrinking the task to just 3 numbers and then immediately closing the book, he slipped right past the brain's threat detection system.
Oh, I see. He crossed the psychological threshold of avoidance without triggering a panic response.
Exactly that. By week 12 of doing this tiny action consistently, the shame evaporated. The numbers stopped being symbols of failure and just became data on a page.
And because the fear was gone, his natural skills as an accountant kicked in.
Right. He built a massive spreadsheet and payoff plan entirely on his own. He didn't need to force the big action. The small action paved the way for it by removing the neurological friction.
But even with a tiny goal, you, the listener, are eventually going to hit some friction. Dr. Hou outlines 5 specific pain points that cause this, and a lot of it comes down to the invisible forces in our environment.
You do not operate in a vacuum. Let's look at the pain point of past failures. A lot of people carry the weight of every diet they've quit or every gym membership they've abandoned.
Right.
Psychologist Martin Seligman calls this learned helplessness. When a nervous system experiences repeated failure, it eventually stops trying, even when success is entirely possible.
Because the brain predicts failure based on historical data.
Yes. So, when you feel like quitting your new habit, it is not a character flaw. It is a rational, protective prediction made by a brain trying to shield you from further disappointment.
That is incredibly validating. It takes the moral judgment out of it entirely. It's not a flaw, it's just data. And speaking of invisible forces, let's talk about the room you are sitting in right now.
Ah, choice architecture.
Yeah, Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein won a Nobel Prize for their work on this, and the default effect. Basically, your physical environment casts a vote every single day for how you are going to behave.
If your running shoes are buried in the back of a dark closet behind a pile of boxes, your environment is heavily voting for you to stay on the couch.
Right, but if they're placed right next to your bed, the environment is voting for you to run.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? If your phone is the first thing you touch in the morning because it's charging on your nightstand, your environment is voting against your peace of mind before you even open your eyes, you have to change the default.
But you must be very careful about how many defaults you try to change at once. Another major pain point is attempting to overhaul everything simultaneously.
Why is that a problem if they're all small?
Because the research shows that behavioral change requires implementation resources, which is basically your cognitive and emotional bandwidth. These resources are strictly finite.
Right, so if you try to fix your diet, your budget, and your sleep schedule all in the same week,
The failure rate doesn't just double, it grows exponentially. You spread your implementation resources so thin that the entire system collapses under the weight.
okay, so you have to pick one thing. But what about the people in your environment? Does saying no to a physical distraction work the same way in the brain as saying no to a friend or coworker who wants your time?
This is one of the most difficult applications of the framework, because humans are fundamentally social, tribal creatures.
We want to fit in.
Right. UCLA researcher Matthew Lieberman conducted fMRI studies on social rejection. He found that when we experience social disapproval or rejection, the brain activates the exact same neural pathways that register physical pain.
Wait, really? Saying no to a friend literally hurts the brain the same way a stubbed toe or a burned finger does.
Neurologically, they are processed incredibly similarly. From an evolutionary standpoint, being rejected by the tribe meant death. This is why it is so visceral and hard to set boundaries. We are biologically wired to avoid the pain of disappointing others.
But are we actually accurate in how much pain we're going to cause?
Not at all. Vanessa Bonds at Cornell researched this and found that we systematically overestimate how upset people will be when we refuse a request. The anticipation of the social pain is almost always significantly worse than the reality of the interaction.
The sources share this great case study about a woman named Priya. She was the ultimate people pleaser.
Oh, yes.
She was a project manager who said yes to every meeting, every favor, every late-night phone call. By 9 p.m., she was a zombie. Her New Year's resolution was always a blanket command to just set boundaries.
And it always failed because it triggered that massive threat response we just talked about.
Right. So she applied the smallest yes framework to her social environment. Her goal became saying no to just one request per week. That is it.
So manageable.
Yeah. And when a coworker asked her to stay late on a Wednesday for a project that wasn't hers, she felt the guilt rise up, but she said no. And you know what happened?
The coworker was fine with it.
Completely fine. They just asked someone else. No catastrophe. By doing this just once a week, she slowly proved to her nervous system that saying no is physically safe.
Which is huge.
Saying yes to every little favor is basically death by 1,000 paper cuts to your cognitive bandwidth. You have to put a tourniquet on your time. And you really have to curate the people you're spending your bandwidth on, right?
Absolutely, because of social contagion. Nicholas Christakis and James Fowler mapped social networks over a period of 32 years. They found that behaviors spread through social networks almost identically to viruses.
Like actual viruses.
Yes. If a close friend becomes obese, your likelihood of becoming obese increases by 57%. It works for happiness, smoking cessation, loneliness, everything. And a huge driver of this is our mirror neuron system.
If you watch someone take a sip of water, the neurons required for you to take a sip of water quietly light up in your own brain, just in case.
Exactly. You are neurologically absorbing the habits of the people sitting next to you. You are constantly priming your brain based on the actions of those around you.
So if you want to write a book, join a group where everyone writes.
Right. Normalization works far better than having an accountability buddy breathing down your neck. You want to make the behavior ordinary, not heroic.
Okay, so you've cleared your physical space, you've curated your social circle, and you are executing your tiny habit every single day. And then week 5 hits.
The plateau.
Yeah. The novelty is gone. The dopamine hits from those little celebrations aren't as strong. You look in the mirror or you check your bank account, and nothing has tangibly changed. You have hit the plateau.
This is precisely where 90% of people quit. They misinterpret the lack of visible progress as a fundamental failure of the system, or of themselves.
But it's not, is it?
Not at all. Neuroscientist Michael Merzenich research on neuroplasticity tells us a completely different story about what is happening during that plateau.
The book uses an incredible analogy here. It compares the plateau to water freezing in the tiny cracks of a massive rock face.
I love this analogy.
It's so vivid. For months, the water freezes, it expands by a fraction of a millimeter, thaws, and freezes again. To anyone standing at the bottom looking up at the cliff, nothing is happening. It looks exactly the same.
But the internal structure is being fundamentally altered.
Yes. And then one day, seemingly out of nowhere, the entire face of the cliff just falls off.
That is a beautiful way to visualize what is happening in the brain. The plateau is an illusion caused by the limits of our conscious perception. Below the surface, your neural pathways are consolidating.
That myelin sheath is thickening.
Exactly. The behavior is slowly shifting from the effortful prefrontal cortex to the automatic basal ganglia.
Look at James, the 48-year-old accountant from the case studies. He desperately wanted to learn to code to change careers, but he thought he was simply too old. He kept buying $500 intensive online courses and quitting by lesson 3.
Because the ask was far too large for his nervous system.
Right. So his smallest yes became spending just 5 minutes every evening reading the code he had written the day before. He wasn't allowed to learn anything new, just read.
And by week 5, he was deep in the plateau.
Yeah, he felt stupid. He felt like he was entirely wasting his time, but he kept doing his 5 minutes.
And then week 7?
Week 7, he is looking at the screen, and suddenly he realizes he understands the underlying logic. The pattern just clicked.
The water had finally cracked the rock. This connects directly to psychologist Albert Bandura's concept of self-efficacy, which is the belief in your own capacity to achieve a specific outcome.
Meaning you can't just wish for it.
Right. You cannot think your way into a new identity. You have to act your way into it. Action comes before identity.
James didn't wait to feel like a programmer before he started reading code. He read code until his brain had no choice but to recognize him as a programmer.
Every single time you execute your smallest in, yes, you are casting a vote to the type of person you're becoming.
But what does someone actually do when they are stuck in the mud of that plateau and everything inside them is screaming to quit?
What's fascinating here is that the solution requires a total paradigm shift in how we measure success. During a plateau, you must completely stop measuring results.
Don't step on the scale.
Do not step on the scale. Do not look at the debt total. Do not count the pages written. You only measure behavior. The only metric that matters is, did I do my smallest yes today?
If the answer is yes, you are succeeding.
Full stop. The invisible work is happening.
Let's bring this all together. If there is one overarching theme to take away from this deep dive, it is that willpower is a myth sold to us by an industry that profits when we fail and have to buy their shiny new solutions again next January.
Absolutely. Sustainable change is never about being tougher or wanting it more than the next person. It is about architecture.
Right. Chunking behaviors so they don't drain your energy.
And designing a physical and social environment that defaults to your benefit. And most importantly, giving yourself an action so small that it slips right past the brain's threat detection alarm system.
So here is our challenge to you. Don't wait for Monday. Don't wait for the first of the month. Pick your smallest yes right now. Think about it.
Just one tiny thing.
Got it. Okay, now have it. Cut it in half. Now have it again. Make it so incredibly small you feel ridiculous doing it, and do it today.
Because the goal isn't the grand outcome. The goal is pure consistency.
That leads to a really profound question that this whole book hints at. Something to chew on after you take your headphones off.
What's that?
If every tiny action, every single smallest yes, is just a vote for a new identity, what happens when you finally stop trying to fix yourself?
That's a powerful thought.
What happens when you drop the massive crushing expectations and instead just focus on proving to yourself day after day that you are a person who keeps their promises? Maybe the ultimate reward isn't the finished novel or the zero debt or the perfect body.
Maybe the real reward is simply the return of your own self-trust.
It is the ultimate foundation for a changed life. January 1st is going to roll around again, but this time, maybe you don't need a giant list taped to the refrigerator door.
Maybe you just need a sticky note with one tiny embarrassing little task.
And the willingness to do it on your absolute worst day.
In a library lost through the sands of time, mystic halls where the stars align, books whisper tales that long to be told, stories alive with magic so bold. Through crooked aisles kids wandered deep, heard the whispers where the shadows creep. Living words danced on the dusty air, a call to finish what was left bare. Write the words, the endings that shine. Set the story straight across the endless spine. Restore the magic, make the chaos no quest, stood frozen in the dark. A fox halfway through his sneaky arc. Princess with no crown, just a tearful plea. Kids took the pen to set them all free. Each sentence breathed life into the fading glow. Pages fluttered as the magic flowed. Mystic worlds came alive with glee in the book of eternal mystery. Turn the page where the living roam. Every tale a new hero's hope.